even if you think you're not ready right now, the best thing to do is prepare.
Yep.
Because as you mentioned in Hawaii, it's such a fast-paced market where if anything happens, the second you hear people buying or rates going down or anything like that, what happens to the market?
Mm-hmm.
It shoots back up. And if you're jumping in at that time, you already missed a huge opportunity.
Aloha everyone, and welcome to the first ever Home Keys Hawaii show. My name is John Quindara, realtor here in Hawaii, and I have the great privilege of welcoming an amazing guest, one of my favorite people in the world right now. I'll let you introduce yourself. Go ahead.
Tristan Castro. I'm a loan officer, 17 years in.
17. He doesn't look like he's been in there for 17 years, but definitely knowledgeable experience. Thank you for coming on, brother.
Thank you.
Yeah. So if you're new to, well, this is the first video, so everyone's pretty much new to the channel, but essentially what we're trying to do here at Home Keys Hawaii is we're trying to share as much information as possible to help out all of our local families. Anybody interested in buying real estate in Hawaii, we're just trying to share as much information as possible so that you can make the right decisions and be educated of how real estate works here and how you can use it to really set up yourself and your family for wealth or even just for success in the future here on the islands. So today we're gonna be covering a lot of good information in regards to the market, projecting forward what it's gonna look like, as well as some basic information about home buying, what that process is, and what to expect. So if you have any questions or you want us to cover other things in the future, let us know. Drop a comment on the bottom, and we'll try to tackle it on. But if nothing else, Tristan, if you don't mind, maybe I know you talked about how long you've been in the industry, but if you don't mind giving a little bit background about yourself, where you're from, a little bit about who you are, that'd be great.
So where would I start? 17 years in the industry. I started when I was in my early 20s. Grew up, born and raised here, from Kalihi. So a lot of people are like, you're from Kalihi. I'm like born and raised in the valley. But I live in Kapolei now. Started in 2005 doing loans. Saw the market, different types of market, up and down. The cool thing about Hawaii, though, is as much as it kind of trends up and down, you can draw a straight line going up because we're so limited on land. So, being in this industry for so long, you see so many different scenarios. The main thing is making sure that you get the client in the correct program.
Yep.
Because you'd be surprised by how many times the client starts with the wrong program. And by starting with the wrong program, they end up wasting so much money and time and future opportunities. Yeah. So I think that's the main thing.
Yeah. So that's the reason. So that's the reason I love working with Tristan is, right? I think a lot of times with first-time homeowners, they are only thinking about that first purchase, right there. So which rightfully so, right? They're going through it for the first time. They're trying to figure out their numbers. They're focusing mainly on that first purchase. But in Hawaii, I think it's super important, like you said, is to not only think about that first one, but how that first one is going to set you up for the next two or three, whatever it might be. I think that's probably the biggest takeaway, or the biggest the biggest advice I would give first-time homeowners is, let's just use this first house to leverage whatever the second or third one's going to be. I mean, you've seen in the mainland, I mean, home prices in the whole country has gone up significantly, but I feel like in the mainland, it's easier to buy it's easier to buy your dream home on the first purchase, right? A lot easier.
Way easier.
Here in Hawaii, we're at a point now where, I think it's almost impossible for local first-time homeowners to buy their dream forever home on the first bat. Almost, yeah. At least a lot of the clients I work with, that's not the case.
I agree.
So it's always buying that first one and using that starter home, whatever it might be, as leverage towards a second or third. Because I guarantee all the people living in Hawaii Kai, Kahala, Diamond Head, all these nice places, that's not their first purchase unless they're born into money. That's usually going to be 2 or 3 purchases down the line. So it's always, I like what you said, is projecting forward, not just on the first one.
And the crazy thing is, even if you sincerely believe that no matter what, you're only going to get this first property. There's still a way to make sure that the program you're getting is the correct program.
Yep.
Unfortunately, nowadays, you can go to any bank and the bank's going to give you debt because that's what we're good at. We're good at giving you debt, right? But you got to find a loan officer that's not just good at giving you your first loan, but giving you the correct loan so that you can get out of debt as soon as possible. Because, and we've seen this with our clients where you meet somebody, they buy a house, they should be super happy, but deep down inside, they feel almost scared because that monthly payment is coming up every single month. And this is supposed to be their biggest asset, but it feels like a liability every month. So the goal is when you first get pre-approved, make sure you have the right program because that'll give you a lot more peace of mind, right, with that future payments or whatever it may be.
So what are some, I guess, what advice do you have for someone going in, buying their first home? What are some questions or things they should look out for to make sure that they're in the right program?
Well, I think that the question that we always ask, which is kind of a loaded question, is what are your goals, right? Because people always say, well, my goal is to own a place and whatnot. But if you can get as specific as possible, right? Like, what are your goals for this year, couple years from now, 10 years from now? What is your big long-term goal? Because if we can get as specific as possible, we can kind of break down how we can get you there as fast as possible and as efficiently as possible, right? Because the more we can save you money from the very beginning by structuring the loan correctly, the faster we can get you to that next, whether it's a next property, whatever it may be.
Love it. Like I said, this is why Tristan's the man, because he's not thinking about your just right now, but he's projecting forward, which I love, which, to be honest, I think it helps all of my clients. Even if they don't fully understand, just knowing that they have somebody they can trust on the line is huge. So with all that being said, let's talk about what's going on with our market right now. It's crazy times. I mean, there's a lot of stuff on the news. There's a lot of stuff on social media about rates, home prices, potential crashes, all of that stuff. So what are you seeing in our current market?
Well, the crazy thing is when we talk current market, we'd have to talk about current Hawaii market, right? Because there's a difference between current market if you're talking California, Nevada versus current market in Hawaii, right? We're so limited on land. So when you talk about interest rates and you say, well, interest rates are so high, and then you talk to some people and they say, well, it's historically still low. But in reality, when you look at the payment does look a little bit higher than what most people are comfortable with. But understanding that the rates do change, they won't always be this high. Sometimes they'll be lower. And that there's different loan programs that can help you pay off the loan faster. Then you realize that now might be the best market for certain people because there's less competition, right? There's opportunities there that might not have been there a couple of years ago. Even if the rates are higher now, it might be a better time to purchase for certain people. Not everybody, but certain people.
So what I say all the time is, because that's always the question we get, right? Is now a good time to buy? And that's kind of that's a loaded question because it's case by case. It's we have to look at your financials, what your goals are,
100%.
You know what you're comfortable in paying. But at the end of the day, if the numbers make sense, even with all the craziness in the market, now is a great time to buy. We just had this conversation with a family this past weekend. We're meeting with them, and the same questions arise, right? They asked, is now a good time to buy? What's the market going to look like in the future? What about high interest rates? We had all this conversation. So what we try to explain to them is, as professionals in this industry, we never like to guarantee anything. We can't, right? We can't say rates are going to be like so-and-so next year. In 2-3 years, home prices are going to drop, they're going to rise. But what we can do is we can look at data over the last 20, 30 years, and from that, kind of look at patterns here in Hawaii and see what's going on. So with that being said, I like what you said about looking at Hawaii's market in particular. Because, there's a lot of propaganda out there, right? Home prices or home values are dropping. Things are slowing down. But if you look in Hawaii, there might be neighborhoods that are, rightfully so. It's not necessarily crashing, it's more adjusting. But there's still a bunch of neighborhoods on Oahu that are still really competitive, that are still thriving really well. So you need to understand where the information is coming from and if it's specific to Hawaii, because our market is completely different from the mainland. Completely different. But going back to the opportunities you talked about. So this particular client that we're talking to, interesting enough, we're looking at bigger townhomes in Kaneohe. And crazy, when I first started talking to them in the beginning of the year, literally, we would look at townhomes that were selling for like 600, 650,000, 700,000. And we would see that they were selling for 800,000, 775. So like 50, 75, 100,000 over asking, which is crazy. And that we got to a point, it was so funny. We got to a point where that was normal. We're like, oh, that looks about right. But if we fast forward to now, yeah, interest rates are higher, and it sucks. It sucks they're higher, but we're looking at a condo that's listed at 755. It's been in the market for over 3 months, and if we put an offer in, guess what? We're not gonna offer 755. We're gonna offer 30,000 below that, and we're gonna ask for credits from the seller to buy down their rate. So rates are high.
And you compare that to what they would have done.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
If you're gonna offer less from the 755 versus what you would have done just maybe a year ago or so,
a couple months
ago, you probably would have offered 50 to 100,000 more. And so then the whole interest rate issue comes into play where people say, oh, the rates are too high. But in reality, when you compare the rates, if your payment is about, let's just say worst case scenario, $1,000 more per month, and you think that's insane, I'm not going to pay $1,000 more per month, which of course is $12,000 more per year, which is $24,000 more in 2 years, $36,000 more in 3 years. But you were willing to offer $100,000 more than the list price, all because the interest rate looked low. And that part blows my mind, where people think, well, I just need the interest rate to be lower. Okay, so you need the rate to be lower, but you're willing to offer $100,000 more. And I think that's where it's case by case, like you said, right? You get people in. Even if you think you're not ready right now, the best thing to do is prepare. Because as you mentioned in Hawaii, it's such a fast-paced market where if anything happens, the second you hear people buying or rates going down or anything like that, what happens to the market? It shoots back up. And if you're jumping in at that time, you already missed a huge opportunity. So you get prepared now. If you realize right now is the right time to buy, jump on it. If you realize right now isn't the right time to buy, it's okay, but guess what? You're prepared. You're ahead of the game. You're ahead of everybody else watching social media, waiting for something to happen. Because remember a couple years ago, even just last year, earlier this year, how many of us, you like a property, you call your realtor, you say, I like this property, the realtor looks and it's already in escrow. And that's the trouble, right? That's the issue. All the properties you like are already in escrow. You cannot get those properties and you're not even pre-approved yet. So jump on that pre-approval now. It's not a commitment to purchase anything. It's just a commitment to yourself to be ready.
Huge. I think one of the biggest misconceptions with buying a home is that as soon as I start the process, I have to buy right away, or things are going to be instantaneously going to happen, right? So people think, if I'm going to buy a house, if I want to move in like next month, as soon as I talk to my lender, it's going to happen. Which, to be honest, first-time homeowners, it takes a while. If there's issues with your pre-approval, with your credit, with your debt, you need to work on that. And after that, it's working with your realtor, understanding what that process is to look at homes, submitting offers. So for the most part, my first-time homeowners are taking anywhere from 3 to 4 months on a quicker end from when they start talking to me to when they move into their home. So it's not, if it's always beneficial to just start whenever you can, so that way when the opportunity presents itself, you're ready to go.
Correct. You don't want to miss that. Especially if you're a first-time, because first-time homeowners, you have, unfortunately, you're going against the biggest competition. Right? So your chances are slimmer than everyone else. The only benefit besides having the best realtor is being prepared. Right?
Definitely. What was I going to say about this market too? Going back to, historically in Hawaii, we've always had limited inventory, high demand, limited inventory. Not only are we dealing with local buyers, but we're dealing with buyers from the mainland and international buyers. And unfortunately, on Hawaii, on Oahu particularly, there's not a whole lot of land that is buildable. And then you add in all the red tape with building codes, getting permits,
shoreline shrinking.
It's just a bunch of things that end up where our market is always going to be short on inventory. So what happens is, quick economics, right? When supply is low and demand is high, then the prices are going to go up. So it's crazy to me because I remember when I first got into the industry, or a couple years in, I remember somebody telling me, there was an economist, and he went on and saying that in a couple years, the home prices are going, the median price for a home on Oahu is going to reach $1 million. And I was, everybody was like, there's no way. There's no way that's going to happen. What happened in 2021?
Crazy.
Like every month we're hitting records. So I just say that because when it comes up to the question of, is now a good time to buy, I almost guarantee that if you wait, okay, I can't say that. I'm not guarantee, but the likelihood is if you wait, you're gonna regret not making the move a year or two before.
You miss such a big opportunity, even for guys like us, right? Like, I'm a loan officer. You would think we understand the market 100%, but this is how crazy Hawaii is. I'm driving in 2015, Kapolei side to go home. You see the new homes in Makakila being built, mid 750s. First thing comes to my head is, no way.
Too much.
That's way
I was thinking the same
much.
thing when,
And now you're thinking, I wish I bought 10 of those if I could, right? Because they're all over $1 million now. Even if the market stands still just a bit, it's never going to drop below $1 million for those homes. So it's one of those things where if you jumped at that time, you took advantage of such a unique time, and you think right now might not be the time, but it might still be that unique time for you. It just depends on your scenario and what you're looking to do.
Because I'm all about numbers, right? I love stats. I love numbers to kind of paint a picture. So if we look at stuff in 1985, okay, you could have bought a home for $158,000, and that's the median price. So that's not anything super fancy, but that's not your smaller, older homes too. That's like right in the middle class. 158,000. In 1990, that went up to 352,000. And we talked about this over the weekend, right? I bet you if you told somebody in the early 90s, I'm going to buy this house for 500,000, they would have went, that's crazy. What are you doing? That's so much money. Granted, interest rates were different back then. They might have been higher, but still the mentality was, why are you buying a house for 500,000? But
It's maxed out.
Yeah, But fast forward like 3-4 years, everybody who bought at that time, I bet benefited greatly from appreciation, from increased equity.
We had that one example too over the weekend where we looked at statistics, and there was early to mid 80s, because rates were so high, you could have a big home for like 400,000. And imagine if the median home was only like 100 something thousand, 400,000 is a mansion in Hawaii basically. But the payment for a $400,000 home was $4,000 a month. Now, mathematically, I'm thinking that's way too high for 400,000
back in the day.
400,000, and your payment is 4,000. Rent was probably $1,000 back then. Who's gonna be the idiot that pays $4,000 a month for a $400,000 place back in the early 80s? Fast forward today, how much is that mansion worth in Hawaii today? That's a $3-4 million home in Hawaii today.
Easy.
And the crazy thing is, if you follow the way interest rates go, that person's payment wasn't stuck at $4,000. They were the ones that jumped on that bullet and said, hey, I know this is going to work because we're limited on land. Everybody else was saying, I'm not paying $4,000 a month. That's ridiculous. So it's those opportunities that we miss because we don't see the value yet, but it's there.
Yep. So I just made a post on this on social media. So interest rates can only do 3 things. After you buy a home, there's only 3 things that can happen with your interest rates. So 1, your interest rate or the rates in the market can stay the same. 2, it could go up, or 3, it can go down. So when we're getting pre-approved, the rates are high, but as long as you're not overstretching, as long as you're being smart with your purchase, let's say you bought at a high interest rate of like 7%, which is high for this time. If the market stayed at 7% for interest rate, all good, right? As long as you didn't overstretch, you'll just live in your home, enjoy it. Appreciation will take into effect. Eventually, over time, you'll have a lot of equity. Let's say the interest rates went up. Guess what? You're going to be grateful, right? You bought at 7%, which is high, but now you're avoiding the 8-9% that might be coming. And then on the flip side, if the interest rates go down, then guess what? You can look at another program. You can either refinance or find another loan and take advantage of a lower payment. So as long as the numbers make sense for you, even if the rates are high, jump in.
The crazy thing too is people forget, because it's so obvious, but we forget this, that in your monthly payment is a principal payment that basically pays down your loan, right? So you're paying yourself versus if you're paying rent, you're not paying anyone but the owner of the home. So why don't you be the owner of the home, pay yourself? The payment might look a little larger than normal, but a chunk of that payment is actually paying yourself, right? And then that's if the value of your property doesn't move, which we know in Hawaii it does go up, but say it doesn't move. Every month you're still effectively paying down your loan, building some equity.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy, right? I think what happens when we rent a home sometimes is we don't take into account the big picture of what's happening because we're only worried about that monthly rent that's due. So let's say you're paying $2,000 a month to your landlord. Guess what? In over a year, you've paid your landlord $24,000. In 2 years, that's $48,000. In 10 years, I need my calculator. What is that? That is $240,000, right? Yeah.
That's crazy.
That's crazy. That's money that's gone. Like you literally are not going to get it back. You're not going to see any benefits from it, other than living in your home, which is important. But really,
not even a tax deduction.
not even that. And at any point, your landlord can tell you, you know, I'm going to sell. When your lease is done, you got to find another place and go through that whole hassle. I remember I recently closed on a home this year, and the home buyer, they're first time home buyers. I remember distinctly them telling me that they're grateful that they don't have to worry and live their lives one lease at a time anymore. They weren't gonna have to live for a year's lease and then worry about, is my landlord gonna sell? Are they gonna kick me out? Are they gonna raise rents? Now they're the homeowner, so they're taking advantage of all of the benefits of being a homeowner. But on top of that, icing on the cake is now they can decide when they want to move, where they want to move, and what they want to do with that. So.
And the crazy thing is, it's always scary. I totally understand. It's always scary when it's your first time. But I've never met a homeowner that said, I wish I was renting.
Yep.
Even if the next home is way more expensive and the payment is way bigger, they're always going to say, I'm never going to pay somebody else, my money. Like, I'm going to pay myself. Never happens. So it's scary, but once you see the light and once you jump on, you understand that, you jump out of the matrix, basically, right? Yeah, things change.
Yeah, so last week, when was Thanksgiving? Last week. So last week I delivered some pies to some of my clients that I work with. And for some of them, I asked them the question, right, how did it all work out? Are you enjoying your house, essentially? And all of them were so grateful, no matter what the product was, no matter what home they bought, whether it was a big home, townhome, they're all grateful that they're homeowners in there, that they closed on that house. So that's interesting. Yeah, I don't think I've ever met, I'm trying to think. I've never met a client that regretted buying a house.
In fact, people get upset when they sell their home and they can't find the next one. They're like, oh my goodness, I'm not going to rent for long. I just want to jump into anything. There's no way, you know. And it's one of those things where it blows my mind because it's the same person that was scared in the beginning that now they never want to pay rent again.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. So let's talk about, we talked about the current market, what that's looking like. We talked about maybe potentially what the future is going to be. So we can't guarantee anything. I mean, historically on Oahu particularly, home appreciations for single family homes go anywhere from 4 to 6% year over year. For a townhome and a condo, you're looking at 3 to 5%. So even though there might be ups and downs in any 2 to 3 given year or any 2 to 3 year span, there's a likelihood that over 4 or 5 years, your home values are going to go up. So we can never guarantee what that's going to be. But if we look at the history of Oahu, there's a pretty good likelihood that your home is going to go up in value. So let's talk about the home buying process for first-time homeowners. So I do a lot of work with first-time homeowners. That's kind of where, not really necessarily found my niche, but where I feel like my heart is when it came to real estate. I mean, sure, it's not the glitz and glamour of $1 million, $3 million homes, and those commission checks are nice. I can lie, they're nice. But everyone's real estate journey starts with their first purchase. So that's why I thought, you know what, let me get into content creating videos to help people get into their first home. Because that's really the goal for anybody. It should be the goal for anybody. So what are the biggest hurdles you see for first-time homeowners? What are the biggest fears? What are the biggest challenges? I know we covered a few, but what are you seeing?
I think it's case by case. So, every single person, it's a little different now than it was 10 years ago where because there's so much information out there, things that scare people are a little different depending on where they're from, what their goals are. So the best thing to do is, I always say, again, be prepared, right? When you be prepared, you know where you stand. what issues might arise, whether it's credit issues, whether it's income issues, understanding on how much income you can use, who can be on the loan, what options are available. Usually that's the biggest hurdle, is just getting the correct information to the people that need it most. Because how many loan officers are out there?
Oh, how many realtors are out there?
Millions of them, right?
Yeah.
And unfortunately, again, we're so good at just giving you whatever we think you qualify for. We're so good at just giving you debt. But there's very few of us that focus on not just how we can put you in debt, unfortunately, but how can we get you out as fast as possible, right? And I think by sitting down with them and just getting over the fear of anything that could go wrong and just giving them facts, giving them the facts of where they stand is probably the best thing to do. But you're right. I mean, they're so scared in the beginning. Even if it's just to sit and see where they stand, most people in the beginning are like, I'm not sure. They think it's that commitment to purchase, right?
So that's the biggest thing. I think anytime I do a buyer's consultation with first-time homeowners, the biggest hurdle I see all the time is getting over that hump, talking to you. Because what is everybody afraid of? Everybody's so afraid of talking about numbers. They're afraid to talk about their debt.
Their credit,
right? But that's so important to know upfront, because without knowing that information, like, how are you going to make a decision to buy a house if you don't even know what you're qualified for? If you don't even know what the monthly payment is on a purchase price. It's funny. I just did a post on social media recently, listing some of the more affordable affordable neighborhoods on the island to buy a house. And every time I do those kind of posts, I always get reactions on social media like, I can't afford that. Like, who can afford that? And I'm thinking in my head, like, do you really know if you can afford that or not? Like, yeah, maybe you might not be able to, but how do you know, like, you really can't get to that number? Or how do you even know what you can afford? And there's only one way to do that, is talking to a lender.
Yeah. And even a financial advisor. Like, in fact, the best thing to do is build your team, right?
Oh, yeah.
If I'm not ready to purchase, nothing is wrong with that. But build your team, get your realtor, get your loan officer, get your financial advisor, because you don't pay them anything, right? All they do is work for you to build the program, build the scenario, build your profile, and get you ready.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like you said, I mean, things are slowing down a little bit, but still, it's super fast in Hawaii. When something is listed, if it's a good deal, and if that's what you're looking for, if that's what you care about, if you're not ready at that moment, if you don't have a realtor you can call to set up a showing, talk to the listing agent, if you don't have a lender in your pocket that already pre-approved you for a number, and you already kind of know what you're comfortable in paying with, then by the time you get all that set into place, if that house was a good deal, it's going to be gone in a couple of days.
That day.
That day
it's in escrow. The day that you gather your documents to get pre-approved, you're already 3 days late because it's already been in escrow.
Yep. And it's interesting, right? Because I think people, going back to the current market, I think a lot of people are listening to the news about the housing market settling, slowing down, dipping. And so they think that there's time.
I'm going to wait.
But unfortunately, I talk to realtors all the time, right? And we're still in situations where we're competing.
It's crazy.
Like, if something comes up to a good deal, even though interest rates are high, even though home prices are high, there's still people buying homes. Things are closing every day.
Especially with remote work nowadays, right? The mainland buyers, international buyers.
Yeah.
It's crazy. And those guys usually have cash. So now if you're looking for a deal, you're going against people because they all want that deal. You're going against cash buyers. The only way you have a shot is by getting there first and being well approved. But the only way to do that is be prepared. And the crazy thing is, if you look at, I mean, we can go over facts and stats all day, which is kind of boring. But one of the craziest ones is in Hawaii, how they call it running up, right? The prices run up. It might take a slight dip, a real slight dip for just a second, and then it shoots back up. And as time has gone on, that period of it taking the small dip has shortened, which means property values shoot up way faster. And that has everything to do with just technology. When we hear things like on social media, rates are dropping. When we hear things like property values are going up, the second people hear that, they all jump in to get pre-approved. At that time, you're already too late. You missed that deal. Now you're in that next pool of people, that next crowd of people who are trying to get pre-approved. And all the people who are already pre-approved are getting the best deals.
Yep. So that being said, so what happens? So real estate is cyclical, right? Regardless of what happens, it's always going to be that way. we're always going to see a lot of movement during the summer times. We're always going to see things slow down towards the ending of the year and then pick up again during the beginning of the year. And that's normal, right? Because you see families moving during the summertime after kids are out of school. Towards the ending of the year, it's Thanksgiving, it's Christmas. You're spending a lot of money on presents, right? So you're not thinking about, okay, down payment, looking for a home. So actually going back to that, who in the right mind would be looking for a home right now? Very little. So there's great opportunity there.
Perfect time.
Perfect timing. If you're not overstretched on Christmas, if you're not too full from eating all that turkey, I would say now's a great time to look. Because for the family we're working with, right now, we're seeing a bunch of homes that are sitting on the market for a long time. And there's a lot of buyers who were looking at one point, but now kind of taking a step back, waiting for the new year. Mm-hmm. So if you're able to make a move now, like...
And the crazy thing is, just knowing where you stand sometimes does a whole mind shift on you.
Yep.
Where because you don't know where you stand, now you're overspending on Christmas,
mm-hmm.
right?
Sure, yeah.
But
we
have clients that are like in October, November that got pre-approved.
Mm-hmm.
They know that, wait a minute, I have an opportunity here
Yep.
because it's slowing down. I have a great opportunity here. Now, I don't even want to overspend on Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
Now what I want to do is I want to actually build wealth for my family.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And that's the huge mind shift difference from somebody saying, well, I'm going to wait, especially because it's Christmas time. I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
overspend on Christmas because
Mm-hmm.
I want to give presents to people,
Yep.
right? Versus somebody saying, hold on, this is going to put me in a way better situation to not just maybe get more presents in the future, but
Yep.
take care of my family
Yep.
for good.
Yeah. So we're not saying don't get presents. Get me a present if you know me, if I'm your realtor. But yeah, no, in seriousness, it's taking advantage
Mm-hmm.
when others don't see the opportunity. So anyway, so going back to what originally I was heading towards. So what happens is things normally slow down towards the end of the year, and then January comes around. Everybody has new goals. Everybody makes goals to buy a house, become a homeowner. And so we normally see a little uptick a little bit as the year begins. So with that being said, Tristan, what are some tips or some pieces of advice you would give homeowners that are going to start preparing in January, February, whatever that might be?
So when we say prepare, sometimes people say, what does that mean,
Mm-hmm.
right? And what I ask a lot of clients is, where do you stand? Like, where do you think you stand?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what is your income? And it's surprising when you ask somebody, what's your income look like? I think, and it's always I think. What's your credit score? I think, is
Yep.
anything wrong with your credit? I don't know, maybe,
Yep.
right? And the time it takes to fix your credit, the time it takes to calculate your income, it's not instant.
Mm-hmm.
So if you don't even know your situation, there's no way we can help you. So to be prepared, just get all of your information together, whether it's your income documents, your assets, your bank statements, things like that. We can even check your credit. It's always good to check your credit. People think that I don't want to pull my credit because the credit's going to go down. Well, if you don't even know your credit, what if we have to fix things on your credit? There's no way to fix it if we don't know what's wrong
Yep.
with it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think just getting your scenario down and getting all your ducks in a row to get you prepared, it's free and it's easy.
Mm-hmm.
It seems scary, but it's not. It's almost like if you have a free doctor telling you, I can give you a free exam to tell you if anything is wrong in case you want to enter the Olympics or do some
Mm-hmm.
type
Mm-hmm.
of physical activity. We can check for you for free. And then when you're ready, guess what? You're prepared.
Yep. Yeah, that's interesting. So credit, that's always a thing, right? When I'm talking to first-time homeowners, I always say, okay, the next step is let's connect you with a lender. Because the whole thing is, how are you going to make a decision, informed decision, if you don't have all of the information?
Mm-hmm.
So if you don't know what you're pre-qualified for, if you don't know what that monthly payment's going to be for the house you're looking at, and more importantly, if you don't know what your credit's like. And I always get that pushback. They're like, well, is he going to pull my credit? Isn't that a hard pull? Isn't my credit going to go down? So yes, the answer to those things are yes. It might go down a little bit.
Minimal.
Yeah, but guess what? If you don't know what's on your credit score, if you don't know what's on your credit report, if you don't know what your credit score is, you can't do anything anyway.
Yeah. You know, the crazy thing with credit is, if your credit is excellent, you really have nothing to worry about when you pull your credit. It's the
Yeah.
people that don't have good credit because you've been trying to get additional credit cards or you've been pulling your credit a lot. Now, when we check, of course, it's going to drop a little more because to the credit bureaus, it looks like you're desperate for more credit, right? More debt. So a lot of times when people say, well, I don't want to pull my credit because I don't want it to go down. Or if you have a high credit score, really, it's not really going to move much, right? But if you've been checking your credit by applying for different credit cards every single week, or you've been late on a payment, or your credit cards are maxed out, then when we pull, it will probably drop. But at least we can give you a game plan on how to increase your score as fast as possible, because there are ways where you can actually not manipulate, but you can utilize the correct tactics to increase your score as fast as possible. And the more time you give your loan officer to help fix your credit, or your credit advisor how to fix your credit, the faster they can fix it, and the faster you'll be prepared.
You know what I love that you do, and a lot of the good lenders that I come across do, is that when credit is pulled, if the client isn't ready right away, then you come up with a game plan of how to attack debts, how to attack the credit report to set you up in the right place. Because I think the mentality is, a lot of first-time homeowners is, they might know that their credit isn't good, and they're thinking, let me just pay off all of my debt. Let me work super hard, get as much money as I can, pay everything down, and then I'll be ready. But then there's some scenarios where you don't have to pay everything off, right? Where you can, instead of using all that money to pay off credit cards, loans, we'll use the very minimal of it that we can see to get your credit in a good place, and then we can use some of those funds for down payments, closing costs, whatever that might be.
Yep. So whatever money you have saved, there's a certain way that you can make sure that you utilize it correctly. It doesn't mean throw it all towards your debt, right? Sometimes it means put some towards your debt, some towards your down payment. Doesn't mean you put everything towards debt or everything towards down payment. The other thing that comes up is, like you mentioned before, well, I don't think I can afford it. Well, if we add up all your minimum payments on your debt, it's equal to just one new mortgage. Now, how do we get you to pay down your debt so that you can afford that mortgage? But they're not thinking that way. They're thinking, I got this car payment for $1,000. I got this credit card payment for another $500. After everything is said and done, I'm spending, including rent, $5,000 a month. And what if I told you, well, you could just have a mortgage at $3,000, $4,000 a month, have no debt. We can utilize some of your down payment to pay off your debt so that your monthly cash flow is actually better
than
with
what you're
a
dealing
mortgage
with right now.
than what you're dealing with right now. But until you sit down with a professional, there's no way you would know that.
Yeah, there's no way. So it's, like we talked about, that first step, talking to a lender, getting your credit pulled, talking numbers in your situation is scary. But it's so necessary to get the right information to come up with a game plan. Because like you said, the worst scenario is that if you're trying to do everything on your own, and then you end up throwing money in the wrong places, you end up spending a lot of cash to do things that you don't necessarily need to do. And then, you might improve your credit a little bit, but it's going to set you up. It's not going to set you up for success when it's time to buy a home.
And time is money.
Time is money. Yep.
Time is money. So you waste time trying to do it on your own, right? I think one of the biggest things we hear is like you said, I'm got to save money to pay off debt, or I got to save money for a down payment, not realizing that there's no down payment programs, minimal 3% down payment programs. But this whole time you're trying to save 20%. And while you take a couple years to save 20%, guess what happened to the market?
Yep.
Exactly.
Yeah. Exactly. So biggest tip, talk to your lender and realtor as soon as possible. Even if you're not ready to buy right now, even if you're not ready to buy in the next month or two, talk to somebody right away. That way you can come up with a game plan so you can set yourself up so when you are ready, then it's going to go a lot smoother.
And one more thing, when you're building your team and you talk to a loan officer, don't feel bad if for some reason you feel like they're not calculating things correctly or not doing a big picture scenario. Don't feel bad of switching and asking around, because that's our job. And unfortunately, you could go to the same bank, talk to 5 different loan officers, and it's so unfortunate that they could give you all 5 different scenarios. And it's unfair, it's unfortunate, but that's just how the market is. So finding that right connection for your team is super important. It might take months to find the right person. That's a come you have to start now.
Yep. Actually, so I'm going to pivot a little bit, because I thought about talking about this. I wanted to kind of get your thoughts on this. So talking to different people and finding the right team, the way that we do business in Hawaii is so different compared to the way that business is done in the rest of the country, in the mainland. So correct me if I'm wrong, but at least what I've been seeing is that business in Hawaii is very relationship based, 100% about relationship. Me as a consumer, as a buyer, I'm willing to even overpay. I'm willing to sacrifice a lot of things just to save whatever the relationship I have with the person I'm working with. So that's why a lot of times I've missed on opportunities, because someone used a realtor that didn't have a lot of experience, that doesn't really maybe have full knowledge of what they're doing.
Part-time.
Yeah, part-time. But because they're an auntie, uncle, friend of a neighbor, friend of a cousin or something, just because there is a relationship there, they're willing to sacrifice a little bit just to maintain that. Have you seen the same thing?
That happens more often than not. And, to be honest, it's hard to say if that's wrong or right.
Sure.
But the fact is that you do miss out on opportunities. Because, and correct me if I'm wrong on this part, but say you use your part-time friend and you're going to put in an offer. And the sales agent, this realtor, knows that you're a part-time agent. They don't feel too comfortable, right? And
Sure.
the seller knows, wait a minute, this doesn't look correct.
Yeah.
You lose out on that opportunity just because you wanted to use your friend who's a part-time agent that doesn't even know how to draw the contract up correctly, that already brings up red flags.
Yep.
And that's the part where people think, no, I want to protect the relationship. Well, you know what? You're the only one being hurt by it, right? And if that person truly cared, they'd understand that this is best for you, right? In this moment, this is best for you. So I agree.
Yeah, Hawaii, I mean, what was I going to say on that? I think it's just funny that's how we do business here in Hawaii. And I think it's like you said, it might not be, I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, but it's just our culture, right? We have the Pacific Islander culture, the Asian culture, just the local island culture is we're going to try to save that relationship as much as possible. And that's why one of the most important questions we ask when we first meet somebody is, what school did you go to? Right? Where'd you grow up? Because automatically I'm trying to figure out if I can create that relationship with you just by finding out where you graduated and if you knew my auntie, cousin, or friend that went to the same school as you. Because guess what? If you do, we're like best friends now. Now we have something to talk to you about, and now we can build that relationship moving forward. So.
And the crazy thing is, working with the right realtor, even if it's not your friend or your auntie or your uncle with that relationship, you work with the right realtor, you're going to realize that instantly you're building a relationship. So if that's what you're looking for, now it's a professional relationship that's going to stand the test of time. It's not just going to be a transactional relationship.
No, I just have one more thing, like one more section I want to talk about, and then I'm good. And then if there's anything else you want to talk about, we can too. So I wanted to, because we talked a lot about the market, real estate. I'm trying to think if there's anything we missed. I don't think so, but I wanted to talk more business now.
Okay.
So why did you get into the business? Even some business stories, like the worst deal you ever did. I kind of want to get to that point.
Okay.
And maybe I think will be good. So why did you get into this industry?
The craziest thing happened. Believe it or not, I was working at a gym, right? I was working at a gym.
Okay.
Selling memberships.
Okay.
I told everybody I was a triathlete, obviously, not a bodybuilder. Right, but I bought.
Are you a triathlete?
I don't even know how to swim, bro.
Oh,
I'm from here, which is embarrassing. So embarrassing. But I think it's a mental thing. I get nervous.
You don't know how to swim?
You throw me into a pool, I'm fine.
Okay.
You throw me into the ocean, I get nervous.
Really?
Right? Yeah. So, but anyway, let's get away because it's embarrassing. 21 years old, before I'm turning 22, super ambitious kid from Kalihi, right? Trying to sell gym memberships. Making decent money. I'm thinking, I'm going to buy my first place at 21 years old. None of my family members own property. My grandma and grandpa do, but none of my immediate family, like mom, dad, at the time, cousins, nothing like that. So I purchased my first little condo, 21 years old, turned 22.
Wow, 21, you bought your first condo.
Here's the thing, though. I thought I was special. Okay. At that time, everything was stated income, which if we get into that later, that just basically means tell me how much you make and we'll give you a loan. I was not special. I wasn't.
What year was this?
2003.
Okay.
2003. Okay, so 2003, buy my first condo. I think I'm the man.
Yeah.
Okay, struggling to make my mortgage payment. But the craziest thing that helped me get into the industry was when I met my loan officer. At that time, I felt like I had to trust that loan officer. So naive. And I got taken advantage of so bad. I remember getting quoted something in the beginning, and I went to the signing table, and everything changed. Everything, the rate was 2% higher. My closing cost was higher. And I remember thinking, I felt so pressured, but I signed anyway. Thank goodness I signed anyway because it was worth it. But I remember thinking, my goal is to own more property. I got to learn this stuff because I don't want to be taken advantage of. In fact, I wish I had somebody to actually coach me the right way. And I want to be that guy. I want to be able to grow my portfolio. Plus I want to be able to help people. So I got into doing loans, and it was tough because I was super young, 22, 23 years old, 22, 23 years old. Nobody really wanted to trust me because I was so young.
You still look
but
22
I already,
and 23.
Thank you. Yeah. But I already own the property. I've been through the process. So that got me pretty far, just explaining to people I had that experience and I know what they're going through. And the crazy thing is, fast forward 10 years later, I'm at an event and I see my loan officer, the original loan officer, and I smile. And she, older loan officer, she smiles back at me and she says, "You look so familiar." And I told her, I said, "You know what? You are the one that inspired me to become a loan officer." And she said, "Oh, that's so sweet. Thank you so much." And I said, "No, thank you so much." Because I don't want to be rude.
She was loving it, huh?
Yeah, she was loving it. And I don't want to be rude. We always want to show aloha. And it's the truth. I wasn't lying. She did inspire me to become a loan officer. But the goal was always to try to help people and coach them the correct way. And it was nowhere near about just making money, right? And people know loan officers, realtors, you can make a lot of money. But the goal is, if you help as much people as possible to get the right program for them, the finances will come.
Yep. So that goes back exactly to what we were talking about, the relationship, right? Hawaii is so small where that if you try to burn somebody, you're going to run into them in the next couple of years.
Never going to forget.
Yeah, like our island is so small, you're going to run into them. And so that's how I've always looked at this industry, is that if I try my best to educate and give you as much value as possible, even if I have to take a loss, I know that relationship is going to benefit somewhere down the line. Whether that be working with you again, working with other referrals that you give me, as long as I can maintain that relationship, then our business together is going to thrive. So that's interesting to know that.
Crazy, right?
That's 21, huh?
21
Do you still have
years.
that property?
I still have that condo.
What did you buy it at?
131,000, something crazy like that.
And
And what I
is-
did was
Okay.
I used that to buy my house in Kapolei. And then I used the house in Kapolei. I don't have the Waianae property anymore, but I used it to buy a foreclosure in Waianae.
Okay.
And then I had a coworker. We both had the same idea, so we sold that property. So now I just have the two. But it's one of those crazy things when you're 21, you think everything is possible, which is true. But I thought I was going to buy one property per year, right? Super ambitious, super naive. And then you get into it and you realize 2005 that everything's a little different. 2008, 2009 comes,
Sure.
market kind of
Things
goes
happen,
down,
yeah.
all because of that stated income issue that, we can always take comments later on that or questions later on that. But it's been a journey, a 17-year journey that I've seen so many different scenarios, so many different clients, different type of families, different type of borrowers. Yeah, man, it's been nuts.
See, it's so crazy. Like in Hawaii, that I don't think you can never understate the power that their first property is going to do for not only you, but your family, right? Like you said, you bought your first property at 21 and you were able to leverage that into your home in Kapolei now. Like you live in a nice area, a nice, beautiful house. Sure, you might have been able to get there without buying that first property, that condo, but I think buying that first one made everything else a lot more easier, right?
Sped everything up. I think the only thing that would have been better is if I had somebody who taught me in the beginning, because here's what I made the mistake. Okay. You buy your first property, and in Hawaii, values always go up. I don't care what anybody says, right? We can show facts that values go up, even if it takes some time.
Yeah.
Second my value came up, I didn't try to buy a house in Kapolei.
Okay.
I bought a BMW.
Nice.
I bought the worst thing you could buy, a depreciating piece of metal that was worthless after a while, right? So you borrow some equity, and instead of reinvesting it, I took one of those invest in yourself the wrong way, thinking I'm a 21, 22-year-old kid. I got my own condo. I'm going to buy a BMW. Look like an idiot, which if I just used that money to invest sooner, if I had somebody coaching me to invest sooner, where would I be now? And I'm thankful for where I am now, but just imagine the opportunities we miss because we don't talk to the right people.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, so I just helped a first-time homeowner. We just sold their first condo, and now they're moving up to a single-family home, which, like I mentioned, right, it's that first property you get into, no matter what it is. So that particular client, they bought a one-bedroom townhome. It's like 500 square feet in Eva. Now, on the outside looking in, and they only bought this 2 years ago, so right before pandemic, right? On the outside looking in, people are probably like, what are you doing buying a 1-bedroom, 500 square foot apartment? Like, just save your money, wait a couple years. But luckily, this client didn't do that. They bought. And then guess what? In 2 years, they cashed in. They sold their property after closing costs. They're able to walk away with almost $70,000 in cash for living in their home for 2 years.
Insane.
And what did they do? They used that $70,000. And now they're buying a single family home. But now the mentality is, now that they've been through it one time, guess what? The sky's the limit. Kind of like you. I mean, sure that there's going to be ups and downs and we can't control, but now they know that they can use real estate to leverage towards the next big purchase, or like what you did, use that real estate to buy another investment property. But more importantly, I'm always going to say this, is that home prices are high now, and it's hard to buy a house now. Imagine how it's going to be like when our kids are ready to buy a home.
Oh my goodness.
I have a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old. I think logically, when they're going to be able to even think about buying a home, it's going to be maybe early to mid 20s. So that's 25 years from now, 23, 24, whatever, about 20, 25 years from now. Imagine where the home prices are going to be.
Well, they're just going to borrow money from you, right? Your dad, give me a HELOC.
See, that's the thing, right? See, that's the thing. It's now it's not. It's my responsibility to make sure that I leave them with a legacy, so that whatever they want to do, they're gonna be able to do 20 years from now. So now I told my wife, I said, I don't know how much kids we're gonna have. Like, she wants to have like 8 or 9. I don't know if I can handle
Amazing.
that. But my goal is, okay, let's try to own real estate, own one house per kid, so that when we're gone and when we're not here, no matter how crazy things are gonna get, at least they'll have some kind of asset that they can use either to live in or leverage to sell and use something else. But if you're not setting yourself up now with real estate, your family's going to struggle. And I've seen so much of my friends and family move to the mainland simply because their family don't own property, right?
You know, the crazy thing is, and I might be biased because I've experienced this, but the people that tell you it's the wrong time to buy or you shouldn't buy right now type of thing is all the people that don't own property, right? When I got my home in Kapolei, I felt like I overpaid, but I knew it was the right opportunity. It's okay if I overpay now, I thought, because in the long run, I'm going to make out, because Hawaii always goes up. And this is coming from a loan officer. I truly believe it. My own family members said, and they speak real local, right? Oh boy, kind of expensive, huh? Your house. I don't know. How much you paying? Rent at that time might have been $2,000 a month. My mortgage was $3,000. Oh boy, how much you pay? $1,200. Like, $3,000 a month. And they're like, oh, well, that's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
Fast forward, they still don't own property, right? And I have equity. So now all the people that told you shouldn't do it, it's a bad idea, or that might be too expensive, are all the people that don't own property. And that's a telltale sign of who to listen to.
Exactly. I think going back to what you said, the reason why I got into this industry is you have all the benefits of being a salesman, right? The sky's the limit in terms of income. You're able to run the business that you want, scale it in a certain way, really build the business as a salesman. You're not working a 9 to 5. You're not working for another person. But when it comes to these real estate in general, I am a salesman at the end of it, but also I feel like I don't need to be super salesy in order for you to understand.
You're an advisor.
Exactly.
We're advisors.
Consultant.
We're advisors. Yeah. We're consultants.
Yeah.
I think when you first start, we feel like salesmen. And then after you kind of figure out what's going on and how people can get taken advantage of, your heart changes and you feel like, wait a minute, I'm actually an advisor. I'm consulting, right? And that changes everything.
Yeah. Well, and real estate's so important. Like, I think even if you don't own real estate, you know the importance of living in a home. Everyone needs a place to live. So I don't need to convince you that you need to stay in a house, because you know it. Now it's just having you understand, giving you all the information possible to make you understand that owning is going to be way more beneficial than renting. So that was going to be my next question for you. Obviously, as a lender, you are going to be a salesman, right? Advisor, yeah. So how do you, as your business, how do you make sure that you run your business? Because I've seen you do this multiple times, and the reason why I love you is you're not too pushy with my clients, right? Even at the end of the day, I've sent you clients that went somewhere else, and you said, at the end of the day, if that works for them. So how do you succeed in this business without being salesy?
I think if you start every day, every work day, if you start just remembering why you're doing this. And, you know, if you're doing this to make a lot of money, it's usually not going to work that way.
For some people,
For some people, it might, but you burn out faster,
Sure.
right? But if you start the day, your work day, remembering that my goal is to just take care of people. In fact, I have it in my schedule. Wake up in the morning, my first appointment is with myself to remind myself, how many people can I take care of today? And by doing that, it doesn't matter if you use me or not. All that matters to me is that you're choosing the right thing for you and that you're utilizing the correct programs, even if it's not with us, right? And we've run into that before where I'm like, you know what? It's better if you go to that bank because they have this special going on right now. Even if you have questions, feel free to come back and ask me because in the long run, that's our goal, right? Our goal is if we can take care of as many people as possible, for the long run, we play the long game, then we get referrals and our business thrives. And I think that's what's gotten me, you know, to stay in this for 17 years
Yeah,
because
it's a long time.
we look at this type of market, we look at this type of industry, real estate, loans, how transient is it, right?
Oh,
how many
huge.
loan officers
Just
do
in the
I
last
know?
2 years have come and gone.
Come and gone.
Yeah.
Come and gone. And I've seen people that made so much money in 1 year and the next year because they got so slow, because they've been doing it the wrong way, they sell cars now. Nothing wrong with that, right? But I'm just saying it's one of those things where they switch industries not because they think it's the wrong industry. It's just because now the business isn't flowing like they thought they could because they weren't doing it correctly from the beginning.
And I think in Hawaii more than anywhere else, we kind of talked about this before, but I see the correct way of doing this is just adding value as much as we can to our consumers. I get questions all the time. They ask me, why do you share so much information on social media? And there's so much times where I've seen people that follow me that I've interacted with use another realtor to buy a home. Like actually the one bedroom that I just talked about, their buyer, I found out, actually follows me on social media, was going to reach out to me and decided to reach out to somebody else right before they started looking for a home. And, it sucks. There's lost opportunity. But at the end of the day, like you said, as long as I'm adding value as much as I can to people, as long as I'm sharing as much information as possible, I feel like at the end of the day, not only are they going to benefit, but I'm going to benefit as well, whether it be through their business, through it coming back around, referrals or karma, whatever it might be.
100%.
Yeah.
I feel the same way. I think it happens to loan officers even more so because people jump ship a lot.
Yep. Sure.
But I think when I first started doing loans, it would actually bruise my ego, right? I'd actually be hurt by it, bothered by it. Now it's one of those things where I'm almost happy for them. I'm like, hey, if you have peace of mind that that's the place to go, great. I'm going to spend my energy on taking care of the next client. I'm not going to spend any energy on feeling pity for myself that I lost a client.
Yep.
It's one of those things where, guess what? Most of them actually come back, right? They jump ship. They find out that the calculations were wrong or the programs are wrong. They come back and they ask me questions. Sometimes they're already in mid-contract, so I try to advise them to stick where they are. But it comes back around. I feel like we give out good energy. It always comes back.
Yeah. And in Hawaii, like people can tell, like, I feel like culturally, people can see through all the salesiness and all of the fluff. So people really know, like, if you're really genuinely trying to help, or if you're trying to sell something. And I think maybe 9.5 out of 10 times they're gonna go with someone that's genuinely trying to help you rather than being sold over.
In fact, it feels so bad sometimes when they switch. They say, "How much do I owe you?" And I'm like, "You don't owe me anything. Don't worry about it. Just take care of yourself. Make sure you have peace in your peace of mind that you're doing the best thing." And I support it 100%.
But not to say don't use us. Use us, and we'll talk about it. So if you are looking to buy a home, if you want to get advice in terms of real estate, also especially on the loan side, drop a message, give us a call. Let's talk stories. So let's wrap things up. I just want to ask you one question. So give me the worst escrow you ever been in.
Oh.
What was that story like? What happened?
So there's a mixture of things happening, right? You have multiple buyers, multiple people on the loan. And what happens is there's things that you have to do, which is like keep your job when you're in contract.
Yeah.
Do not buy a car when you're in contract, right? And do not use money that's in the couch cushion. It has to be in your bank account. So a lot of times, I don't want to say worst transaction, but one of the most challenging transactions was trying to figure out how to utilize this person's money that wasn't in the bank.
Was it a lot of money?
The whole down payment in the beginning.
Wow.
What they did was I saw it in the bank account, and then they took it out for some reason. So when we got their bank statements during the contract, their most updated bank statement, everything was missing. And I asked them what happened, and they said, "Oh, we actually had to take it out because we don't like it in the bank. But don't worry, when it's time, we'll put it back in. We'll put it back in." And I'm thinking, holy smokes, this is gonna be insane. Oh, and by the way, we're gonna switch jobs because my brother who's on the loan got a better offer, so he just quit his job. And I'm thinking, we're supposed to close in a week.
Yeah,
you cannot just switch jobs. And the thing is, you can switch jobs technically, but we have to recheck, re-verify everything to make sure it still works. And that's a whole nother thing, right, that we have to do. So all of those things happening all at once. And then guess what? We bought a new car for our new garage. And I'm thinking, hold on. Remember when we first went over this, no new debt, nothing like that. Yeah, but we thought we already were approved. We was approved already, so it's okay. We weren't going to tell you. And I'm like, but the lender knows. We get these alerts. We get these, debt alerts that tell us if you borrowed new credit. So that was probably the most challenging one. And the scary part is everybody hates the loan officer. The borrowers are pissed at me because
they bought a car.
Because they bought a car and they took out their money and they're pissed at me. And I have it in the pre-approval of what we went over and what not to do. And they're like, yeah, but it's just on a piece of paper. And I'm thinking, now I got to make you guys sign understanding that do not do these things. And then I wasn't working with you. So that realtor was pissed at me. Like, why are we late? And I'm thinking, I cannot stop these guys from buying a car, even though I told them not to. So, that's where the stress comes in and trying to ground yourself and remind yourself, okay, you know what? It is what it is. Just work as much as you can, take care of them as much as you can, and let's just get done with this. Because you lose years of your life sometimes with all that stress.
Yeah, at the end of the day, I think at the end of the day, like you said, you're building a team in order for you to buy the house. Utilize us. Like, be completely honest with everything you're doing. Ask us questions. We're not working against you. We're trying to help you get the house. So like in that scenario, whether it be hold off a little bit, let's wait like 2 or 3 weeks before you buy the car. You can buy the car after and you'll be totally fine. Or let's wait a couple weeks before you switch to jobs or any of that. That's going to be beneficial. So I got story time for my worst one. So this was a couple years ago. This was one of my first listings. And it was a family friend, really close actually. We decided to list their home. And the market wasn't as crazy, so it sat for a little bit, and I was getting nervous, right? Because I was like, my first listing, it's not flying off the shelf. It's been sitting a while, a couple of price reductions. And then we finally found someone that could buy the home. Now, the reason why it sat so much, it was a nice house. It was recently renovated. But towards the back of the home, there was some foundational things going on. Like the concrete was kind of like wavy a little bit in some places, which people love the house, but they're like, I don't know what's going on back there. And we didn't know what was going on too. But we finally found someone that was willing to look past that, kind of saw the value in the home. And of course, he worked in construction, so he was like, I can kind of work on things. So we entered a contract. I was grateful. My sellers are grateful, right? It's been seen for a while. They do their home inspection. So I remember my seller telling me, hey, John, the sprinklers are broken. They put that in their disclosure. They told me, okay, tell the home inspector, don't touch the sprinklers. But I mean, I can't tell the home inspector that because that's going to raise a bunch of red flags, right? They see that it's broken. And as a home inspector, it's your duty. If you can see it, you're going to test it out because you're going to try to tell your buyers, you're going to try to give them an antidote. Sorry. You're trying to give them information of why maybe something's broken and how to fix it, whatever it might be. So they're doing their home inspection. I get a call from the buyer's agent. And he said, hey, John, the inspector turned on the sprinklers and there's water coming up inside the house. And I was thinking, inside the house? So I asked him, is there like water shooting like into one of the windows? He said, no, like there's literally water coming up from one of the walls, flooding the living room. And I was like, what the heck? So what we found out is that whoever had the house before my sellers, they extended the back, but they didn't cap the sprinkler system. So the reason why the foundation was so wavy is that for all this time, for years, there was a leak going on and it was warping the foundation.
Wow.
And then, just like with everything, right? It just so happened that on that day that they decided to turn it on, it exploded, and there's water inside the house.
Goodness.
So I'm freaking out because it's my first listing. On top of that, like, I already knew that if these buyers fall out, we're gonna have to wait a couple more months,
Disclose everything.
you know, and go through all of that, disclose everything. So gratefully, I'm thankful that they stayed on board. I mean, there was a lot of negotiation. Of course, we have to throw them credits. On top of that, I had to get somebody out there to cap it and show proof that we capped it. But at the end of the day, you never know what happens in this industry, man.
It's crazy.
Crazy.
Right? You could be on the
Like,
last day.
so much stuff happened. So, anyway, was there anything else you want to cover? Anything else comes to mind?
I'm good.
Yeah?
I'm good. This was amazing.
Ray, anything you want to cover?
No, but I got ideas after.
Okay, cool. Okay, cool. Well, thank you everyone for tuning in. Like I mentioned, we're here as your team. If you want to know any information, have any questions about anything we covered, feel free to drop us a call, shoot us a message, and let's get into contact. All right.